Hey everybody, let's see, we're just going to give everybody a few seconds to connect, waiting for people to come on board. Welcome to Celebrate Recovery Facebook Live. I see some people are joining. As you get on, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. We're excited to be with you tonight. I see a number of people are getting on now. My name is, I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with alcohol and addiction. My name is Ken.
And I'm a grateful, dependent believer in Jesus, and I struggle with codependency and bossiness, and my name is Tammy.
And we're glad y'all are joining us tonight. It's my privilege to serve as the South Central Regional Director for Celebrate Recovery, and we'd love to see where people are from, so make sure you're posting where you're from online. We're all getting ready for the CR Summit, the Celebrate Recovery Come Rejoice online summit that will be July 30th and 31st. But the really cool thing about the online summit is we will have the opportunity to invite people to this that maybe would never get to go to the summits when they're in California or the East Coast Summit in Tennessee. So we get this chance to invite people that have never been to the summit. So we're real excited to see what the numbers, as they come in, how many more people get the opportunity to experience Celebrate Recovery at the summit that have never got to do it in live. So this is going to be a really cool thing. There's a couple just announcements to make on that. If the sale where you buy 5 and you get one, the 6th free, will come to an end on July 17th. So you want to make sure that you're ordering your tickets before July 17th so you can take advantage of that buy 5 and get that 6th person free. That free person could be that person that wouldn't come or maybe couldn't afford to come, and maybe you can bless somebody with that ticket so they can participate and that may have never would have before, and get those people to the summit. Because one of my favorite things about the live summits was whenever they ask people to raise their hands that this is their first summit. This is the first time that they've been to the summit, and just seeing all of those hands go up. I mean, it's always more than 50% of the people in the room are their first time attenders to the summit that are learning about this program for this ministry for the first time. So we want as many of those people to be in this online format that maybe wouldn't be the chance to go before. So the other thing about that is a lot of people have been asking questions about how do we know, how is this going to work? I mean, it's online. This is new for us in the sense that Celebrate Recovery has never done an online summit before. And so the week before the summit, they're going to send out a link to the email that was registered that provides you a link to go out and test your computer and test your projector or whatever form or whatever place that you're doing it. You'll be able to test the video stream. And basically, in the simplest, it's not that complicated. I heard somebody said we can't hear very well, so I'm trying to move my mic a little closer. If you can watch a streaming video online, if you can watch YouTube or Vimeo, most likely this is not going to be an issue for you to see the summit online. So when you get that link, just go out and test it, make sure that's working before you get into it. We're just excited for this summit. I can't wait to see how many new people get to come to this and get to experience all the different talks from the great speakers that we're going to have. Obviously we love hearing from Pastor John and Cheryl and Johnny, and we're going to get to see the skit guys, and Hosanna's going to be there, and John Townsend, just these powerful speakers teaching us the different things about Celebrate Recovery and how that translates into our churches and into our personal lives and into our recovery. It's just been such a really good thing for us and our group as we go to these trainings to bring back these new, just innovative things that we can do that we hadn't thought of before.
You're still saying they can't hear you.
I'm going to move my mic closer to my mouth. I'll let Tammy talk for a second. She loves to
If you haven't registered yet, you go to crsummits.com, and that's where you can get your registration. And remember, you pay for 5, you get 1 free until July 17th.
I just saw a question that popped up on there about, is it going to be 2 days straight? Well, yeah, it's going to play through 2 days straight. But one of the most important things is that it's also going to be available to watch for up to a week after. So if you're not able to watch it, even on Friday or Saturday for the summit, when it's going live, you can actually watch it for a week after that. So, like our group, we're actually going to do it a little bit later. Sorry, someone said they can't hear me still, so I apologize about that. This is the closest I can get the mic to my mouth. So, that sound better? Okay, good. Anyhow, so we're going to do ours on Friday and Saturday. So instead of Thursday and Friday, I think I said that wrong to begin with, but I was trying to get my mic fixed, so I apologize. So some of the people that wouldn't necessarily be able to go on a Thursday are going to be able to come on Friday, and we'll do it on Friday and Saturday. So we're excited about that at our church. So those are things that, as far as the summit's concerned, that we just kind of want to get those things kind of nailed down. So if you haven't registered yet, please get registered. You want to get that in before July 17th so you can get that extra ticket. When you buy 5, you get that 6th one free so people can come. The other thing is, for us, one of the big things when we go to the summits is we always do shirts, and we like to go as a group, and I love seeing the different shirts from all around the country, the different ones that the CR groups come up. So, right now on pastors.com, you can get the summit shirt. So the gear that's available for the summit, and there's probably going to be some additional ones that'll be on there that aren't on there yet, but right now there's gear out there. So if you want to get t-shirts, like us, and have summit attire, that's something that you can do at your group. So we'll be excited to see how that goes from that standpoint. I'm looking forward to seeing all the different people that come. So like Nicole said, shirts can be found at pastors.com. It's under the CR resources. So go, if you want to buy t-shirts, go out there and get those. Tonight's talk, we were, I think when it came out about 15 minutes ago, the pre-message said we were going to talk about forgiveness and amends. And so we actually get to practice forgiveness and amends right now, because that's not our talk. I think they posted our last talk as the talk we were doing tonight. And tonight we're going to talk about relationships and recovery. And really, amends and forgiveness are a huge part of relationships and recovery. And that's just it just says that we're going to make mistakes, even the stuff where we have messages go out that are incorrect. We don't have to spend a whole lot of energy on those things tonight. That would have been something that would have spun me up years and years ago. Tonight, I kind of want to start off, though, talking about it's real easy to get caught up in the negative relationships and the hurts, the habits, and the hang-ups in relationships. But also, I want to start by, I think all of us probably have some positive relationships in our life. And I know Tammy's got some that she has had, and I know we all have. I was going to let Tammy talk about one of hers, at least, to begin with.
I think my most positive relationship growing up was the relationship I had with my grandmother. She was my person. She was the person that I could ask anything, and we had the greatest conversation sitting on her porch swing, shelling peas. And she would answer any questions I had, and even my friends. There's just some things you don't want to ask your mom or your dad as a teenager growing up, but I could ask my grandmother anything, and she gave me truthful answers. And that was just she's my person. When somebody says, if there's one person you could bring back down from heaven and have one last conversation with, that would be my grandmother. She was my person.
And I had people in my life that built me up. And Tammy and I come from two really different backgrounds. And she had a grandmother in her life that was really a powerful influence on her. And I had a grandfather in my life that was a powerful influence on me. And mainly because he was one of the few people in my life that was very patient, and he was very kind, and he spent a lot of time with me. He's passed a long time ago, but my memories from my kids, from my childhood with him, are just so powerful. He was a lumberjack. He got up every morning and he went and worked in the woods every day, and he skidded lumber. And I got to spend summers with him in the woods of western New York, as a matter of fact. So anybody from up in the New York area, I love that part of the country. Anyhow, we go out there, and he had logged the same sections of forest for 30 years. And we would sit down at lunchtime, and he always had a Bible with him. He always had a good word to say. But I remember us sitting under trees when we were kids that he had planted 30 years prior. So when we sat down for lunch, we were sitting in the shade of trees that he had planted years before. And it was just a message that resonates so much with me today, because he's a person that provided shade, and he gave that example that we can go forward and we can actually build up relationships in other people. And of course, now as a teenager, I went kind of the opposite direction, and so I struggled for a number of years in my addiction. And as an adult, I can still look back on that positive relationship, but recovery has really also taught me how to be it's taught me how to be a better husband. It's taught me how to be a better father. It's taught me how to be a wonderful grandfather. And I get to repeat some of the things that I learned from my grandfather. But I don't know that I would have that if I didn't have recovery, because recovery is all about relationships. And tonight when we talk about relationships, I go automatically into the principles of Celebrate Recovery, and I go really kind of directly into the Beatitudes when I think about that, because Christ was talking about in Matthew 5, 7, and 9 about being merciful and experiencing mercy, and being a peacemaker and being called basically a son or a daughter of God. That's the place in recovery where relationships, between people are probably the place that it gets planted. The other part, though, for recovery for me is I think about the relationship that we have with God. The first place that we start is that vertical relationship. When I am good with Christ, when I'm good in my relationship with God, I'm generally better in all the relationships in my life. When I'm out of sorts with that, which, all I have to do is go back to my pre-recovery, selfish, self-centered, self-seeking way of thinking. And I was out of that relationship with God. And so I was in this kind of dark place in most of my other relationships, because I wasn't being a friend and I wasn't really being a relationship. I was actually had stuff to get out of it. And I think that's the other place that I think we all have experienced in relationships where maybe the relationship isn't that healthy, whether it's us, whether it's myself, or it's the other person. And I would assume Tammy's got some people in her life that have not been the healthiest relationships. When we're out of sorts with those, when we're in an unhealthy relationship, I always describe it to my guys. I can usually tell when I'm in an unhealthy relationship when there's always a hook in what we're doing. There's a motive or an expectation to get something out of that relationship, as opposed to figuring out what I can be putting into that relationship. I know that I've had a lot of those for myself, where when I was in my addiction, I was always trying to get something out of whatever the relationship was. And I had to learn some other ways of living. And Celebrate Recovery, I'd been in recovery for a while before I got into Celebrate Recovery, but it really has added to the nature of the relationships I have with other people. And I think Tammy could speak about how her relationships have changed since she's been in Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned is that there's some relationships that I have to set some healthy boundaries for myself. And it's okay to do that. I had to learn to give myself permission to do that, to set a healthy boundary for me, and that was okay. Not just family members, but some friends. And I also have learned that not every relationship is a forever relationship. There's some relationships that are seasonal. They're there for a season, and to be okay with that. So.
When I was reading through the book of Matthew, when you get to 5 and you get to the section on Beatitudes, the Beatitudes give us kind of the basis for what recovery looks like in Celebrate Recovery, whether it's the peacemaking, or being merciful, or even experiencing persecution and how that can grow us. But when you read through the book of Matthew in 5, once you get out of the Beatitudes, the next whole section of Matthew 5 talks about personal relationships. It talks about, how we're supposed to, it's easy to love the grandmas and the grandpas, the ones that were the positive influences in our life. They're so easy to love. They're so easy to get along with. I think about our grandkids. Okay, we have the best grandkids in the world, so we'll just leave it at that, and y'all can chime in on y'all's best grandkids, and we're okay with y'all being
There's
biased.
two, and they're cute.
Yeah, we're okay with y'all being biased on that. But at the same time, I think about, they all have their unique personalities. Some of them are really easygoing. I mean, they just crawl up on your lap, and they want to spend time, talking to you or telling you all about what's going on. And they're, all 5 of our grandkids are, well, we got 2 5-year-olds, we've got 2 4-year-olds, and we've got 1 2-year-old. And so when you get all 5 of them in a room, it's a little bit crazy.
It's a lot crazy.
It's so much fun, but I kind of chuckle because it's when you think about, I think about a family photo when we try and do a picture with all 5 of the grandkids. Okay, it's almost impossible to get the 5 of them looking in the same direction. It's also, we have one that I'm going to say he's our willful grandchild.
He is precious.
Yeah, he's got no faults, but he's willful. As soon as he sees a camera come out, he automatically, he will not look at the camera. He is just absolutely oppositional to having a good picture taken. So we have a ton of pictures of 4 kids sort of looking at us
and
one totally looking away. And that's the place where it's so much, that's the place where it reminds me of how different each person is. And when we think about the people that we love, our grandkids, whether he looks at the camera or doesn't look at the camera, I just love those kids, and it's so easy to love them. And then we have people in our lives that may be less easy to love. They may be a little harder to have relationships. I mean, I remember our pastor and other pastors I've heard talking about is EGRs, extra grace required people. Those people that are sandpaper people, they rub your rough edges off. And I like to think of it that way, because when we talk about the book of Matthew on this, in Matthew between 21 and 48, there's a place where it talks about loving the people. It's easy to love the people that are easy to love. It's hard to love those that are our enemies. But those are the ones that we're supposed to be spending a lot of time. Those are the ones that we're supposed to be spending a lot of time loving. Because it's the people that care for us and love the grandparents in our lives, those people that are the easy ones in relationships. Those are the ones that the relationship's going to exist even when I'm messing up. It's almost like the relationship with me and God. Those easy people are going to love me despite myself. The tough ones, though, are where recovery really comes into play, where we start practicing the skill sets, where we start practicing Luke 6:31, where it says, okay, I know they're tough, but I want to treat them the same way I would want to be treated, even if they can't in return. And there was a good comment that just popped up on the screen about boundaries in relationships, and that's essential. There was a bracelet. Everybody remembers the bracelet. WWJD. What would Jesus do? That's an important concept. What would Jesus do? He had some difficult people around him. He had Pharisees, and he had the lawyers of his time, the religious lawyers of his time, that were trying to constantly put him in. They were trying to get to him. They had a hook in everything they were doing. They had another agenda that was going on. We may have people in our lives like that. Christ was just really careful around those people to make sure. Sometimes you got in a boat and across the lake. It's sometimes we have to step away from the sick relationships in order to, actually have the space to do it. But what I also love about what Christ did with those that were in opposition to him is he made them answer the questions. When he talked about, when the Pharisees were questioning about what does it look like, what's the great, when he asked them what's the greatest commandment, basically love the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Their question immediately came back to, well, who's your neighbor? They want him. And so Christ just went into explaining what a bad neighbor looks like with the Good Samaritan story. The people that went by on the other side of the road, the people that didn't look out for the person that was different than themselves. We got so much stuff in our world right now where this, I look at the news and I don't spend a lot of time on it because it's somewhat depressing. But one of the things that I do see is that if I can be a positive influence to the circle of people that I'm around, if I can love on the people that are in front of me, that circle will grow. And that's kind of the relationship that Christ was teaching me. And Christ also taught us, that we can love those people even if we have to set boundaries. I have one particular example in my life. I have more, but my father struggled pretty much throughout his whole life. He passed away about 10 years ago, and I miss him tremendously. But he wasn't the easiest person. He wasn't on the same list that I put my grandfather. He was an EGR person for a lot of different reasons, and there were his own struggles. And it's not so much that I want to go into what his struggles were, but my father never really got healthy in his life. He never was able to be healthy in his relationship with me, and so I did have to create some boundaries in that relationship. One of the things, though, that I learned was I could set healthy boundaries with my father even though he was unable to. And I could love him without a condition. I just had to make sure that I was practicing not being codependent, not enabling, and being direct. And it took me, I'm going to say, it took me almost 40 years of my life to figure all that out. And I miss him today because the last couple of years that I spent with my dad before he passed, we had a wonderful relationship. He got to spend time with Tammy, he got to spend time with other people in my family. So, even those difficult relationships, recovery can teach us healthy ways to have those. I just want to make sure that I'm practicing those things. I know we've got a little bit more time left, and we were talking at the very beginning of this about the registering for the summits, and I realized I totally left something out. If you need to register for it, please go to crsummits.com. That's where you can register and get your tickets. Because one of the things you're going to learn about at the summit, you're going to learn more about healthy boundaries in relationships, and you're going to get to practice those things. They're really, from a CR standpoint. And I know Tammy knows about this stuff. It's just one of the things that we've done in our ministry for a lot of years. Is when we came back from the summits, it taught us new ways to have relationships with our leaders. The leaders in our CR group. That was really powerful to come back and be able to put some of the principles that we learned at the summits and the workshops that we had. And so these teachings are something that become really practical in our personal Celebrate recoveries, and that goes right back to relationships. Because my question, I can put this out to the group that's watching tonight. If you're in Celebrate Recovery, or if you serve in leadership in Celebrate Recovery, you don't have any conflicts whatsoever in the relationships with the people that lead with you, right? None. Yeah. I know that there's conflict in Celebrate Recovery. How we deal with it, though, how we address those things are the things that are so powerful in changing what the dynamics of our church looks like, what our ministry looks like, and what our community looks like. It's just a powerful thing to be able to change how we relate to people. Recovery gives us a new tool. Christ gives us that tool. He uses Celebrate Recovery as a process for us to become more effective in how we relate to other people as leaders in our group, as well as in our personal relationships, as well as in relationships with the strangers in our life, the people we haven't come to know yet. One of my favorite scriptures, Tammy was talking about relationships sometimes being seasonal. Ecclesiastes talks about that time and a season for all things. When we have a person that comes into our life, I just am reminded that we have to be, whenever we meet a stranger, we have to be careful to make sure that we could be entertaining angels. I've had too many people pop into my life, and being able to have a good relationship with them, or being that person to a stranger that I would hope would be that person to me, it has just lifted me in so many different ways. So I'm grateful for those things in my relationship and from recovery. And I'm grateful for the other things about CR. You know, one of the things that we haven't ever talked about before on this, and it's something that I wish I had when I was a kid. You know, we have a Celebration Place is a part of Celebrate Recovery, and we have the Landing that's part of Celebrate Recovery. You know, I talk about my relationship with my dad and that it was not the most healthy relationship. I think all of us can relate to growing up and maybe picking up some unhealthy habits, maybe even dragging some hurts into our adult life. You know, the thing that I love about Celebration Place is that while the parents are learning about recovery and healthy relationships and all the different lessons that we teach throughout the year, from denial, you know, from the first step to the 12th step and the 8th principles and the Beatitudes, our kids are in Celebration Place doing the same thing at a child's level. They're learning the same principles that I needed those principles when I was a kid. I wish there had been a program like this around when I was a kid. And then just like that, we have some that come, you know, we have kids that started out in Celebration Place that are now in the Landing. You know, the kids have their own set of hurts, habits, and hang-ups. The Celebration Place is about not breaking the chains. It's about not forging them. You know, I want them to have pre-covery. I want them to come out of their childhood healthy. The Landing, you know, every one of us that's an adult was a teenager at one point in time. We make the best decisions when we're teenagers.
No.
Okay. I made the worst decisions ever as a teenager. So coming back into the Landing allows our kids our teens, to address some of the issues that we didn't have a healthy outlet for. I mean, peer pressure today and what society tells us today, what the world tells us today, I mean, it's a powerful influence on our kids as well as our teens. I love that we have the Landing and Celebration Place. It gives them that balanced, healthy place, because the relationships that we're dealing with as adults, the struggles we have with boundaries and the struggles we may have with issues from our past, we're giving the kids and we're giving the teens an opportunity to go through that with a healthy aspect to it. They get to learn the tools before they make the mistakes. I mean, I think I made the comment last time we were talking about I'd rather be wise than smart. I'm not going to live long enough to make all the mistakes to learn from them, so I need to learn from other people's. That's one of the things that, you know, that Celebration Place and the Landing do, and CR. We get to learn from things from other people that have done it maybe the wrong way. And that's another really big reason for going to the summit, is when we started our CR ministry at our church, we did so many things wrong. Okay,
Yes, we did.
I know, I have to say it. I did so many things wrong that when I went to the summit, I came back going, oh my gosh, why didn't anybody tell me I was doing all this wrong? So we learned all these things, and we get to start putting into practice better ways of doing things. You know, so that's one of those things that I really love. And I kind of want to end you with the expectations part. We talked about having expectations in relationships as being one of the things that can be detrimental. I heard it said once, and it's one of my favorite lines to people, is that expectations of other people are just resentments under construction. You know, I don't want to go into my relationships having expectations of other people. As I've been in recovery for a period of time, I've learned that I get to put things into relationships. And when I sincerely and do that authentically, without trying to pull stuff out of it, my relationships grow, and actually they produce more fruit than anything I could extract from them. So we are grateful to be on tonight. We're grateful that the CR Come Rejoice Online Summit is July 30th and 31st. Please get your tickets. CRSummits.com is where you can get them. Up till July 17th, the tickets are buy 5, get the 6 free. I believe you can register all the way up to the summit, to the 30th and into it. Probably would be okay. And then on top of that, the week before the summit, the email address that you registered with, they're going to send you a link so you can test it. So we love you guys. We're so grateful for everything that y'all are doing out in the ministries there, and we can't wait to see all the new CRs pop up. Please stay safe out there. We love you, and y'all have a great night.
Bye, guys.